Good morning, class. Here is my wonderful smoke bush that I was talking about last week. I just trimmed it, and it's kind of drying a bit, but I like the way the leaves are curling, and I also like the strong shadow shape. So if you finish your monster blobs, what I'm going to ask for you to do is to go outside to find some beautiful leaves. Maybe some of the leaves are changing colors, maybe some are dried up. And then you're going to sketch in either your sketchbook or if you have extra watercolor paper, you can use that as well. So from last class, I did a little bit of a sketch, not completely done, but that's okay. I'm just going to start watercoloring and showing you how I actually mix my colors. What I do first, I observe the leaves and I want to say, this is a mostly analogous palette, meaning I see a lot of yellows, kind of rusty yellows, some oranges and deeper reds. But even more so, I also see complement colors kind of blending together. When I look at the darker reds here with the leaf veins, I can see some reds and maybe some greens mixed together along with some deeper purples. Over here as well, in the other part of the vein, I see some reds and the greens kind of radiating out. This has like a slight slow bleed, so maybe I'll use some wet and wet technique. For today, I'm just going to show you how to start one leaf. And again, keep in mind the different size brushes you have. And also keep in mind that a lot of watercoloring has to do with being patient, letting the colors dry in between the layers as you glaze, and also adding a sense of that spontaneous movement into action. Okay, so I have my beautiful watercolors, and I usually go for the local color, meaning the color that I find is the majority of, and I just start out really light with first adding water. And I'm mixing my red, my deeper red, kind of crimson color, with a little bit of the orange. And sometimes I just go directly onto the paper because I just want to see how that looks. Maybe a little bit of this nice like autumn. This is like a whole autumn selection right here, so we got pretty lucky looking at the color matches. And also I'm noticing there's like a really nice beautiful pattern going on with this leaf. Kind of has like these lighter orange yellows coming out, spreading out a bit, and then in between are the deeper red, violet oranges. So I mean, just subtly keep in mind, it's a very loose pattern, it's not a tight one, so just remind myself to add water and let it kind of do its thing. Always have a paper towel near you as you get started. So I'm working in with just kind of that loose orange, reddish palette. I'm working kind of fast. Try not to overthink. I like the kind of warm up of this. Then I'm going to start over with the violet red. So I'm going to use some of this color palette here, which is the deeper. I'm letting the colors like bleed a little bit, but I'm not trying to be overly so. And as you can tell, I'm starting off kind of light, very light, kind of very transparent, using more water than pigment. That one I need to get a little lighter, a little darker and heavier. So I'm going to use some of that red. want that violet tone to be a little rustier, so I'm going to head over and add some of this kind of yellow oxide and red, just to glaze over that a bit. That seems a little more. So as I'm kind of working with my watercolors, I want to try to find where the dark shadows are and really exaggerate those dark shadows. So we know that when we create some nice shadow shapes like we're showing over here, we tend to use a lot of complement colors, and that's what I'm aiming for right now. So I'm looking at majority of the local color is a reddish orange, so I might use blue, which is the opposite of orange, and a hint of green, not too much, but I see more like a blue-orange shadow shape, so I'm gonna work on that after I add a little bit more local color to what I'm mixing. So at first I start off pretty light and bright, like in other words, it doesn't really look at all like the leaf. It's kind of like this light color with bright, more colorful than what with the oranges and the reds. But then I always mute it afterwards by mixing some complement colors, and that's usually a layering approach. And this is where it takes time, this is where the patience pays off, and this is where the general knowledge of understanding your color mixing really becomes essential. Okay, so I'm gonna mix my heavier shadow shape, which we talked about already, which is that orange and blue color combo. You can see that nice kind of rusty shadow kind of coming together, which I like a lot. So by adding that blue on top of the orange, that's how you create that shadow. And it's naturally bleeding the way I feel like that leaf is interacting. So this is where it comes together slowly, and it looks kind of like these rain shadows in a way, kind of like a puddly shadow. It's exciting. Another thing that when I'm working with watercolors is I always want to try to figure out, besides the neutral shadow shapes, is where the bright, intense tones come through. And that's where you really allow the intensity, the brightness of the color to shine. Every so often when you're working in details, I might want to start with a different size brush too. Like this is a pretty good size brush, but I might want to go like, more narrow if I want to. So let me check my other brush tips. I have one this size, so maybe I'll try that one out. I always have like 2 or 3 different brushes in different sizes as needed. It just makes it a little easier, more helpful as you forego in this process. So I'm building a little bit more pigment, but I'm not trying to overbuild it either. So we're not just using like a coloring book approach with a really heavy intensity. We still want to use the underlayer, which is this light kind of transparent layers that I'm building in. over on this area, get a little lighter tone. So what I did is I used a little bit of orange and blue and then a little bit of that crimson red. So what I had to do is neutralize it and then add some of the local color because it slowly fades off. So I talked about how much I love using yellow, and the yellow really allows a little more intensity to come through with the orange too. So this has more of a yellow-orange effect to it. Sometimes I started with that orange-blue shade, but now I'm layering a little bit of red-green, which is also another complementary color scale. And I'm just playing along with that as well. So as that blue and orange complement color dried, after that dries, you can add other complement colors to intensify your value scales and your shadow shapes. Try and get those shapes that I see, the shadow. I'm gonna let that dry a bit. Right now it's a little on the wet side. I'm still working, as you can tell. It's a little just under painting. And after I let that dry, we'll see more of what we can do to create the beautiful smoke bush leaf. Okay, take it easy.